What is up? How y'all doing? So good to see y'all again this week. How you doing, Tammy?
I'm good. I'm good.
What you been up to?
I actually been doing so. We've been winding down school
Yeah?
and just kind of went and played around some yesterday and just kind of playing. Just kind of having fun.
Yeah?
Ready for summer.
Well, that's good.
Ready for summer.
Hair looks good.
Thanks. It doesn't have big gray streaks in it. It's always good.
You kind of had that whole Rogue from the X-Men vibe going on. Yeah, she's got the little gray right there.
I definitely did.
I'm telling you. Well, we're still talking about superheroes this week. So we're continuing our series called Origin Story. And
I see you came prepared with your...
I did. I'm ready. Miles Morales, baby. I'm telling you, into the Spider-Verse.
I didn't. I should have worn one. I
I
didn't even
know.
think
You
about
had a
it.
Wonder Woman. You could have worn your Wonder Woman
I
shirt.
wore my Loki shirt.
Loki is not a superhero.
It's debatable.
He's a villain. Anyway,
It's debatable.
it's not debatable. All right. So this week, let's just kind of start things off. What do you think a superhero's main job is?
I think they protect the people around them. They care about those that are around them in their world, and they protect them and take care of them.
What about
Make
to
sure
battle strangely dressed villains like Loki?
They make sure that, well, again, he's not much danger, but they make sure that they're taken care of. You know, that if things come against them, they're not harmed and they're not,
And I so thought you were going to say something along the lines of modeling the latest trends in latex.
That too.
You know,
who do you think has the best uniforms?
Oh,
the best, superhero uniform.
The best ever?
Yeah.
Well, it's Batman.
Okay, I'll give you Batman.
The utility belt. You can't beat the utility belt. It's got everything you need right there.
I was going to say the Incredibles, but I'll give you Batman.
The Incredibles?
The Incredibles have great uniforms. They do lots of things. They can stretch and it's good.
Well,
the little baby can catch on fire and it doesn't burn up.
Jack.
Mm-hmm. So I'd like the Incredibles.
Oh, okay. Other things that their main job, maybe just show off their superpowers?
Sometimes maybe, but I don't think they usually just show off their superpowers. There's a point behind it. There's a reason why they have been given those powers, and they have to find that reason to use them, I think.
What about to accidentally destroy a bunch of buildings?
That stresses me out.
Yeah.
I always like the ones who have the power to put it back together afterwards.
Right.
Because it stresses me out when they...
Well, the Hulk doesn't put things back together.
No, he does not.
He just, Hulk smash, and
it stresses me
it's
out.
gone. And a lot of superheroes do a lot of those things, of course. But if we were to name one thing every superhero has in common, and you alluded to it, it's this. Superheroes help people. And while they're doing their best to save the world, have you ever noticed how much damage they do cause sometimes, though?
Yes, they do. It's scary. But they care for people. This would be my question for you. Who is someone who cared for you in a meaningful way like that, where they truly cared for you? And how did they care for you? How did they show that?
I think in my life, the person who's cared for me that just comes to mind when you say that would have to be my grandmothers.
Yeah.
Both of them. Both my grandparents were like that. They really took me under their wing. My parents were not as active in church as a lot of people's parents, but my grandparents made sure I was in church. And then my aunt Joanne was that way. She always made sure I had a ride to church, and she just made sure I was there.
Right.
And I think that had a lot to do in forming who I am today. So that's who I would say. That's how they cared for me in a very meaningful. I mean, don't get me wrong, my parents cared for me, but I think that was the biggest impact on me in my life. Is they had this spiritual influence on me, and it formed who I was spiritually. So,
right.
So that who would you say?
Well, I always go back to my mom. Had a lot of impact on me. My grandparents did some too, probably. But, I had a youth minister who, when I was in high school, that really invested in me. And some really great Christian friends that invested in me that probably cared for me and showed me love in that time. And so I would say that would probably be someone I would look at, my youth pastor in high school who really invested.
But, a lot of people aren't like that, though.
Yeah.
And what do you think are some of the most common reasons that we don't help people who are in need?
I think sometimes we're just busy. We don't see it. We're in a hurry and we just don't notice people around us. I think sometimes we just don't want to. It
Yeah.
takes time. Sometimes it's uncomfortable.
And see, I like that one. I think sometimes it's very uncomfortable for us to help people in
I think
need
so.
because I don't know. It just
You have
it's
to reach
almost,
out to people that you don't know,
Right.
maybe, or
Right.
you have to take a risk, and sometimes we just don't want to take that risk.
That's
it's
right.
scary, and so we just kind of pretend like we don't see it or don't notice it.
Yeah.
I think that's
It's kind of like you're driving in town. You pull up to the red light. You
Yeah,
look
you
over and
kinda-
see the person holding the sign.
and you don't know if they're being honest or not until you just kind of pretend like you don't see them. I think
Right.
that's. I mean, I know I'm guilty of that sometimes.
Do you
too,
avoid
but
the eye contact?
I have done that many times, but I think even like even with kids at school, sometimes I think we don't want to reach out of our comfort zone, because then we have to talk to somebody who's maybe not a part of our group or
Our
a part of our
tribe.
and so I think we just try to pretend like we don't see it and we just try to ignore it.
Well, we started this series last week about heroes and fighting for justice. Superheroes are known for helping people. Okay, we're establishing that. But I also have some good news. You and I, we don't need a cape or superpowers in order to help people and to be known for that as well. So, Tammy, what do you think? What does the scripture say about this?
Well, I mean, I think if we're looking, of course, at Jesus and how he was a hero and how he cared for people and showed them love. And I think one of the most important scriptures we can look at is whenever he is at the Last Supper and he's talking to his disciples and he sits them down and he washes their feet. So we'll look at John 13. It's verses 1 through 17. And
Yeah, we'll put this in the comments down at the bottom so you can kind of go back and reference this.
But this is just a neat time where he shows like how to truly care and truly love. And it was surprising, I think, to them. So you want me to read it and then?
Yeah, let's roll with it.
Okay, so this is John 13, verses 1 through 17. Before the Passover festival, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Now, when it was time for supper, the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, Simon Iscariot's son, to betray him. Jesus knew that the Father had given everything into his hands, and that he had come from God, and that he was going back to God. So he got up from supper, laid aside his outer clothing, took a towel, and tied it around himself. Next, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet and dry them with the towel tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who asked him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, What I'm doing you don't realize now, but afterward you will understand. You will never wash my feet, Peter said. Jesus replied, If I don't wash you, you have no part with me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not only my feet, but also my hands and my head. One who is bathed, Jesus told him, doesn't need to wash anything except for his feet, but he is completely clean. You're clean, but not all of you. For he knew who would betray him. This is why he said, not all of you are clean. Which I just want to say to me.
Yeah, that passage right there kind of jumps out at us.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. He knew.
Verse 11.
He knew what was coming. He knew that Jesus was going to betray him, and yet he still washed.
His feet.
Which I just find kind of.
And that's like the old saying. Even Judas still had a place at the table.
That's right. He did.
Even though Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray him, he still had a place for him.
He still loved him. And
Yeah.
I also like that it says in verse 13, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. I mean, even Judas, who he knew was going to betray him, he still loved. And I just think that's neat that he was willing to show him service and love him, knowing what was coming.
Well, it was all about setting an example. If you go down and look at verse 15, which we didn't get that far, but
we can finish reading.
yeah, it says...
Start at 12. And
Okay. It says, when Jesus had washed their feet and put on his outer clothing, he reclined again and said to them, Do you know what I've done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are speaking rightly, since that's what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should also do just as I have done for you. Wow. That's deep stuff there. And it's kind of like the emulation thing where we take on the roles of the people that influence us the most. Mm-hmm. I mean, much like when we were kids, dressing up like superheroes. Right. How many times did you put a towel around your neck and jump off the couch? And
a lot.
And you shared last week about you getting your dad's lasso and trying to be Wonder Woman and
right.
catch. I mean, we try to emulate the people that influence us the most. Right. And here Jesus is giving a prime example. He's commanding us that we should do exactly how he's done for us. And so He says, verse 16, truly I tell you, a servant's not greater than his master, and a messenger is not greater than the one who sent him. I know these things. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. So this moment was revolutionary for two reasons. Okay?
It was a big deal.
First off, the disciples' feet would have been pretty disgusting. They'd have been pretty nasty. Are you a feet person?
Not at all. Ugh. No.
You're
I
not?
would not want that job.
Oh.
Not at all.
Well, see, they didn't have closed-toed shoes like we do today. They would not have been allowed to participate at camp.
Nope.
Okay?
No closed-toed.
And they did a lot of walking in dust and dirt and just nasty animal droppings.
I hadn't thought about that. That was in here.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. That's great.
It wasn't very sanitary, okay? It was pretty nasty. And the other part, Jesus wasn't just a friend serving his peers. Jesus was respected
Right.
and honored. He was a rabbi and their teacher. He was their mentor, their leader. And to have him take on the role of a servant and wash their feet would have been very embarrassing.
Right.
It would have been very uncomfortable and wrong.
I think make it clear that when people came into your home, that was the job of the servant.
Right.
They would sit down and wash your feet, and that was expected from the servant. But for Jesus to do that, who was their rabbi and their teacher and someone who they loved and respected, that just seemed like way out of place.
But here's the
So
thing.
strange
Here's the
to
thing
me.
about that, though. Washing the disciples' feet was his way of caring for them.
Absolutely.
And it was his way of serving them and teaching them something very, very important. And even before his greatest act of selfless love, which was dying on the cross, Jesus modeled this servant attitude. He displayed it on a smaller scale by washing the disciples' feet. So,
Showing that things that showing that love can be a small act of service,
right.
or it can be a great act of service, and he showed both the small acts and the great act. And so,
Well, let's look at one more passage of scripture in here, and it's still in John 13. We'll look at verses 34 through 35. It says, that same night Jesus said something else to his disciples. This is what he said in verse 34 of John 13. He says, "I give you a new command: love one another, just as I have loved you. You are also to love one another. By this, everyone will know that you're my disciples if you love one another." Wow. Jesus, our hero, he taught love and he taught us to care for others, but also he modeled that too.
Right.
That was something he also did.
He wasn't too good to do the selfless acts. I think
Right.
he was showing you, hey, you can show love through so many ways.
It didn't matter what his
Right.
circle thought about him at that point.
He was just showing love, and I think we forget that sometimes in our own lives. So we can show love in so many ways, and by showing love, we're showing them Jesus.
Right.
And I think we forget sometimes that we think we have to say it.
Right,
We have
right,
to verbalize. Sometimes
Or make a
just-
big production out of it.
Right. And so many times just showing a small act of service and a small act of kindness shows them Jesus.
Right.
And without us ever having to say anything. And we get busy feeling like we have to, use our words so much. We can use our actions. And that's really what Jesus did there. He just used his actions and showed them love through his actions.
But I know the big question is this. What do we get out of it? What do we gain from this?
When we show someone
Yeah.
love and kindness,
What do you think it is?
for me personally, it doesn't matter if people see what you've done or know that you did it. It's just the feeling of happiness that you helped someone. Like you did something, you're like, oh, it felt good. You feel good when you do that. Whether anyone saw it or they didn't see it,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter. It's not about that. It doesn't matter if people see what you're doing. It matters how you do that act, and then that when it's done, hopefully they got something from it. But
It's that act of
I
obedience.
think sometimes we get more out of it. You just
I know.
feel happiness and you feel just that.
Well, it's kind of like when
contentment.
you go on a mission trip.
Right.
And you go and you think, man, those people really need me. And you go and you do these certain things to help serve. And then you come back and you realize you got more of a blessing
That's
out
right.
of that than they did.
Very much.
And so I think that's something that happens a lot. So what does that look like for us? Are we supposed to wash our friends' gross feet like Jesus did?
I hope not.
That'd be pretty nasty, wouldn't it?
I'm not a fan of the feet, but I think we can show service in so many ways around us without without it having to be a production of any
Right,
kind. Just small
right.
acts of service.
And I think you could start right in your own home too.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. With your
Pick up your clothes, clean up your room, wash your dishes.
do small acts of service for your parents. I mean,
Yeah.
that means a lot. But
And it doesn't sound real exciting.
no,
I know that
it
doesn't sound
But
exciting,
it would make them so happy.
oh, it would would
make them
thrill your
happy.
parents.
It really would.
What has gotten into him?
Or even your siblings, like
Yeah.
going and I know sometimes my brother was a slob, and so sometimes I would just go clean his room because it really bothered me. I don't like a mess, so sometimes I would just go clean his room.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it made me feel better. I hope he liked it, but it made me feel better. So I mean, you don't necessarily have to clean their room, but just doing a nice thing even for your siblings sometimes shows them kindness. A lot of times, we're fighting, especially right now when we're with each other so much, but doing something nice for them.
Right.
So if you're in your home and that's right now all you got, start there.
Yeah.
But we
So
can reach out to
there's
the community.
these very ordinary places are filled with extraordinary opportunities.
Right.
Okay, and that's to care for others in little heroic ways. Just look at the needs around you. Be aware of what's happening around you, knowing that many of those needs, they're going to be small. Okay,
But we talked about that last week, how we have little missions along the way to our big mission.
Right.
These are some of those little missions.
Jesus once asked his disciples, he said, don't you have eyes to see? Don't you have ears to hear? Well, when we overlook the needs of people who are right in front of us, I wonder if Jesus is asking us that same question, So here's a few ways that we can see more clearly, okay? Number one, smile more. Don't be creepy. Don't freak people out. Just smile. It's okay.
I saw a mask yesterday, though, because now we wear our mask, in places, and they can't see that we're smiling. So the mask said, what is it? I'm smiling.
I'm smiling behind the mask.
Behind the mask.
Yeah.
So that would be
I actually think this Sunday we're going to have signs, we're smiling behind our mask.
Because you can't see that now.
But yeah, smile at somebody who's alone. It's okay. Don't be creepy about it. Don't.
Ew.
You know what I mean?
Please don't do that.
Don't do that. Okay, just smile at them. Be nice. Surprise somebody by asking how their day's going. That's a very easy way.
But then listen. Like
Yeah.
when they talk, you really listen. Like, don't interrupt them. Don't drift off. Start
Yeah.
looking at your phone. Like, really, sometimes just listening to someone and letting them just tell you.
Right.
And truly listening.
Give
makes a huge difference.
somebody something that they need. So I mean that could be anything.
I think on that one, I think sometimes about one time we were driving down the street and it was literally just pouring down rain. And this person was walking on the sidewalk beside us, and Lee made me pull over and give him the umbrella because it was raining so hard. And the whole time, I'm like, oh, it's my only umbrella, and we're fixing to get out of the car. We're gonna be wet. But they were literally soaked, and it was so bad. And selflessly, I was thinking, I don't want to give up my umbrella, but he did.
I was a superhero to that person.
Yes, you are. But I always think of that because I was kind of selfish. I was like selfish. I was like, I don't want to give up my umbrella. But
Well,
even that though was a blessing to them because
I know how it is. I've been walking in the rain before,
Yeah, I
and
know.
people drive by, and I'm thinking, if they had an umbrella, I wish they'd give it to me.
Yeah, no, we gave it away. But honestly, at that moment, I was like, oh, it's raining. But it was the right thing.
Well, other
Just
things you
something
can do.
little like that.
Other things you can do. Ask somebody a question about themselves, and then, like you said, just really listen to their answer.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to how other people are feeling.
Right.
If you see somebody that's hurt, if you see somebody that's angry, see if you can make them feel better. You might make them laugh or give them advice, or simply just sit and be with them. Mm-hmm. That goes a long way. So these are just some practical things that you can do in your own home to be a superhero, or in your own community to be a superhero. And so,
yeah, I think showing care and showing love doesn't have to be a huge act. I think we think we have to do these big mission projects and we have to do these huge acts of kindness, but it's just little things, just listening and smiling. And
you'll be
caring.
surprised at how much growth happens from just doing the little things that prepares you for when you get an opportunity to do a big thing.
That's right.
So, love it. Good stuff this week. A couple things we want to remind you about. If you get a chance to watch this before Wednesday night, tonight, we are doing our parking lot meetup tonight. We will do 7th and 8th grade, and we're talking about the grade you just finished. We haven't promoted yet, okay? So 7th and 8th graders, we're going to meet at 5:30, and we'll go from 5:30 to 6:30. 9th through 12th graders, we will meet at 6:45 to 7:45 tonight in the parking lot. Make sure you eat before you come. We can't serve food yet. And make sure you bring a lawn chair. Bring something to sit on. Because we're just gonna sit around. We're gonna talk a little bit. We want to see your faces. We just want to see how you're doing.
We do have to practice social distancing.
Yeah, we have to practice social distancing. You know, no high fives. You have to do like the long distance. You know, that kind of deal.
High five.
Which Kylie brought up an interesting point yesterday. I was talking to her, and she was talking about how it's how a lot of guys are doing this right here. She said, when you cough now, you're coughing in, and that's just like.
We'll just air high five and sit and talk.
Yeah, whatever.
we won't touch.
Kind of grossed me out after she said that.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that.
She's so intense, I'm telling you. Anyway, so we will be practicing social distancing tonight, so just be aware of that. And that's if you see this before Wednesday. So we hope you can make it tonight. We'll be in the church parking lot. Hopefully it won't be raining on us, so it's all good. We've got a lot of stuff we're going to talk about tonight. Just going to talk about some ideas and some things we're going to do this summer. And
we're going to try to make...
Mainly we just want to hang out. We want to see you guys. So
and we're going to try to have some exciting things coming for June, but we want to get that all on the calendar and get out to y'all. But some exciting things coming for this summer that we can do. Yeah. Hopefully.
We'll do what we can.
That's right.
We're going to make it happen.
That's right. At least we get to see faces.
I know, hopefully.
Hopefully.
What if nobody shows up?
I'll be really sad y'all show up. I'll be really sad. He'll come hang out.
Folks, let me pray for you guys, and we'll just have a great week, okay? Father, it's good to be in your presence. Thank you so much for giving us an example to follow. Lord, help us to follow through in obedience. Lord, help us to follow your ways and to follow your truth. In your name we pray. Amen. See you guys.
Amen.